Hello, welcome to James's Wrestling Shoot Interviews WSI, where I talk to the great and good of professional wrestling. And my guest this week, he's written 2 books, including Pin Me, Pay Me, his autobiography, and Bell to Bell, his podcast. And he's also the second most famous resident of Ashland, Kentucky, the first one being Charles Manson. He is the man who always stands his ground. He is the man who will never back down. It is Bobby Blaze. How you doing, buddy?
Brother, I'm doing great. Good introduction, man. Yeah. You're the second most famous person from Ashland, Kentucky. That's right. Yeah. So
where did you find that one out, that Charles Manson was the famous one?
Well, he's been through here. It was, way back when, and everyone claimed that he lived on a certain street or grew up on a certain street. I think he was here for a couple of years, like maybe when ages 10 or 12 or so. And then, had a lot of family connections here. I do know that. And I've heard that all through school, of course. And then with that, when I was in business, doing business with Jim Cornette, we had met several times, and Billy Ray Cyrus at the time was blowing up, and he's from like the next town over, but considered right in this Ashland, Kentucky area. And I was in a locker room and waiting, for Jimmy to get there. And I was having my tryout match. Like I said, we've been negotiating and talking, anyway, he comes in, he goes, Bobby Blaze, the second most famous person from Ashland, Kentucky. And I thought for sure he was going to see Billy Ray Cyrus. So I reached my hand out, and he goes, the first being Charles Manson. And I just busted up, cracking up, man. And, we had hit it off before then anyway, but that made me I was like, yeah, I like this guy, man. So, yeah, just rumors and hearsay. Lived out here in the South Ashland area where I live at. And I don't know, it's just a couple of years, a lot of relatives, I guess.
But
claim to that.
Do you have the thing that we have over here? So whenever someone famous has lived in a house or something like that, we'll have a little blue plaque outside the house. So like if you go to Liverpool, you'll have John Lennon lived here for 3 months. John Lennon pissed here. John Lennon did a fart here sometime. Do you have the same sort of thing for Charles Manson down some road?
Not that I'm aware of. No, not that I'm aware of. Nothing like that. Yeah, we probably should. They've named a lot of stuff after celebrities that's from Ashland. Believe it or not, there's an unbelievable amount of celebrities that's from Ashland, Kentucky. And I certainly don't consider myself a celebrity, although others do. But I'm like, I wish the fuck they'd get me a street named after me. I will say that. I do get hot about that sometimes. I get put over in this town all the time, and I'm like, I'm still waiting for Bobby Blaze Boulevard. But no, I kid. But no, there's no Charles Manson Street or Charles Manson pissed here or talk to young girls here, nothing like that.
It's probably for the best. It's probably for the best. But enough about Charles Manson. I'm going to go straight to you. So because I told you just before we started recording, I've written so much stuff. We're just going to have to hit sort of like the big stories for the most part. But before we do, go to Smoky Mountain Wrestling, WWF, WCW, the great Malenko. You did train with him. You did start wrestling, I think, briefly beforehand.
Yes,
and then
that's correct.
Great Malencos. So who, apart from Larry Simon, who trained you, were there any other like famous names that went on to make it at the same time? So X-Pac, Norman Smiley, maybe different times as you, but who was sort of in your class?
Sean was there when I was there. Norman Smiley had actually just left. Bob Cook had wrestled all over Florida as the Mass Superstar. Barry Horowitz had been there, trying to think. So many people came through there. When I was there, it was mostly myself and Sean Waltman. We came through at the same time. I had done about a guy up here in Kentucky named Rick Newsom actually broke me into the business. I went to the Monster Factory for like a little tryout. I drove up there one weekend. And I've been sending out letters all over the country to promoters, and trying to get it and trainers. And because it wasn't like it is nowadays, where there's a lot of different schools. But anyway, long story short, Rick really didn't smarten me up. But I had about 10 or 12 matches just against him, either as a manager or in like a street brawl kind of thing. And so I did that for a few months, and I was at a show, an NWA show, NWA Sanction show, I should say, and it was Hector Guerrero as Lasertron and Jimmy Valiant versus Buddy Landell. And to this day, I cannot remember the other talent that canceled, but I had worked a third match, and then the promoter asked me, would I go out with Buddy? Buddy actually said, put this kid here with me. And I had the long blonde hair, and at the time I was, built pretty good. And so Buddy said, just listen to me. And I was on a ring apron, and they were working, and I was like, holy cow, these guys are they're professionals. I could just see it. And I got back in the back, and I was like, buddy, what do I got to do to get to be like that? He goes, man, you get the proper training. And, you know, so I went back home, and that evening or within a couple of weeks, and Marvin, a guy named Marvin Joel from Minnesota had actually sent me a packet that had all the information, because he knew Larry. And he sent me a packet about the Malencos school, and I started contacting them. And there was a lady there named Phyllis Lee that wrote me back and said, yeah, you know, come on down, you know, whatever. Time I was in Kentucky, and the school was in Tampa, and I just kept working and saved my money for about 6 months. And I had 2 friends that were in Orlando that I knew that was 90 miles away from Tampa. And I said, if I can get that close, I can at least train on the weekends. And that's kind of what happened. I went to Orlando, got a little job, hanging around. I'd done several different things, from cleaning restaurants to pool management, to just, you know, get my money. Then I'd leave on Friday night, train in Tampa Saturday and Sundays. And I did that for about 3 months, and a room opened up at the camp. And so I moved on down to Tampa, and then it was balls to the wall. I went 4 days a week. Every time the gym was open, I was with Larry in there learning. And about 4 months of that, and another guy named Frederico. And like I said, Sean was there, and Jumbo Beretta, Willie Wilkerson Jr. Anyway, some of those guys were there. And about 4 months into it, Dean had been traveling to Japan quite a bit. He came back into the camp. We had moved locations, and Dean got with me and said, hey, man, Dad said you're doing pretty good. I'd like to work with you and Rico exclusively. And I was like, yes, for sure. You know, whatever, you know. And that's my training really accelerated. With Larry, I was doing a lot of conditioning, psychology, and just, you know, working the matches. It was Tuesday and Wednesdays. And then on Saturdays was like an open gym. And then Sundays I had 2 rings. One of them was for shoot fighting. I'd go over and learn a little bit of that and get my butt beat. But, you know, needed to learn, you know, lessons I needed to learn. And then, like I said, when Dean came, my training really accelerated. And best thing I say, I was very fortunate to be around a Malenko, you know, be a part of that Malenko Academy, that camp, you know. But guys came and went through there all the time while I was there. Brady Boone was in WWF at the time. Brian Blair was there. He would come over and use the ring to tighten his work up for Japan. Joe Malenko would come in when it was time for him to go back. At that time, he was still doing some tours over in Japan. So you got to meet and wrestle with all these talented people, you know, and that's then after like that and they had student shows, of course, but also about 2 months after that, so I've been about 6 months, I started getting booked out, you know, on maybe Tuesday night, Friday night, a Saturday afternoon show, you know, maybe a Sunday afternoon show. So I started taking some bookings and, you know, done quite well. That's kind of what happened. But Larry was a great mentor and a teacher. He was teaching me lessons. He was like a father to me, you know. He was teaching myself and a lot of the boys lessons in life, not just in wrestling, and also but how the two intertwined, you know, how to deal with different things in and outside the ring. So,
yeah. How much did he charge you for the camp?
Man, I don't even know. I think it was supposed to be like $1,500. And you paid X amount of dollars, $1,500 down, and you do all this. But Larry would take you out back, and this was my agreement. Everyone had their own agreement. He said, Bobby, how's $30 a week sound? And I actually was delivering pizzas at that point too. I switched to delivering pizzas when I was there. And I said, yeah, I can do that. And he said, now that $30 is for the week, whether you come one time or whether you come all 4 times, that's up to you. That's how, you know. So I thought, that's great. And then I also moved in. So I stopped the pizza gig and was working with a guy doing some construction a little bit. And we'd do a show. So that guy, his whole deal was he wanted to help me make sure that my hours were working so I could be at that camp every time. And anytime they gave me a booking, I could make that booking. So, you know, through his kindness, he gave me a job and a place to hang out at and make sure I could get my workouts and all that in. And I don't know how many times the $30 exchanged hands between Mr. Malenko and myself, because we'd go to a show and he'd say, you know, take $30 off of your bill and set up the ring. I don't even know if I had a bill, you know. And then he'd come to me on like a Tuesday. At one point, Dean had went back to Japan. I had already been to Canada and Canada. Yeah, I'd been to Canada twice and South Africa, and I'd come down on Tuesday and Thursday. He'd say, fill in for Dean today and do this, you know. Then he hand me $20, you know. He goes, that's for teaching class tonight. And I was like, you know, all I did was do the conditioning part, you know. I was like, okay. So I don't know that $1,000 passed between him and I because it was a handshake deal. And like I said, I think that $1,500 figure was thrown out there, but man, it was, if I paid $2,000, I paid too little, but I'm serious. I doubt $200 when it's all said and done passed hands because it was just a mutual respect thing. And plus he knew how serious I was to move 1,500 miles from home to be there and to be there 4 days a week, you know, so a lot of mutual respect there.
Yeah, Sean Waltman always spoke like super highly of Larry as well. Just said he was a great trainer, and you know, just knew he was thinking. He doesn't sound like one of those trainers who, I don't know, like let's say Buzz Sawyer, who charge you $3,000, try and run you off. He may not turn up, and or charge you $3,000, try and run you off the first day, and then keep the money and leave.
No, man, we just had a handshake agreement. It was going to be $30 a week there at the beginning, and I'm telling you, with me being there within 6 weeks or so, it was like, you know, get your butt here, you know, kind of thing. So, and then I listened, you know, just give my attention and learned. You know, so yeah.
Do you know there was Grand Prix wrestling I wanted to talk about? There was just the independence. There was South Africa. I'm gonna, if there's any time at the end, we'll have to come back to it, and I might even reinsert it inwards. But as a WWF fan, because you know we didn't obviously get Smoky Mountain here for the most, nothing like that. We only really got WWF and WCW later on. Who recommended you for the jobber position in WWF? And also, do you prefer enhancement talent or jobber?
I prefer enhancement talent or a carpenter. But, you know, some people are just jobbers. You know, it depends. I had went to, like, Grand Prix with a buddy of mine and worked. I did about 18-month tour up there. And, you know, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island. I had a good thing going up there, and we can come back and talk about that in a minute. But after my first tour up there, I came back to Kentucky. I wasn't planning on going, so that ended in like October. And my buddy went back to Florida. My plan was to go back to Florida right after Christmas. I was going to stay home for a couple months and take care of some things at home. So during that time period, several guys from Florida were going up and doing the TV jobs for WWF at the time. And I got a hold of one, and I knew before, like several guys were already doing WCW talent enhancement. Someone was doing WWF talent enhancement out of Malencos camp. So but when I saw one of the guys I'd been in Canada with on there, I saw him on TV when I was like, that bastard didn't even tell me he was going to do a TV spot, you know. So I immediately called him and I said, what's the deal? And I saw several other guys too that started later than he did doing them. And he goes, oh, just they came through and they needed some talent. And, you know, he goes, get a hold of JJ. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I called Malenko and I said, you know, what do you think? And he said, well, just because you've done that tour, you know, he goes, any exposure is good exposure. He said, if they come to your area, get a hold of them, ask for JJ, you know. So lo and behold, they was already scheduled to be here within about 3 or 4 weeks. And I just went up, knocked on the door, told security, you know, hey, I'm supposed to be here with the wrestlers tonight. And I saw Pez Watley, who I always thought the world of, and I saw Brady Boone, but I knew both of them anyway. And they said, yeah, just go in there and ask for JJ, Bobby. And so that's what I did. And it was in Huntington, West Virginia, which is 15 minutes from my house at the arena they're doing TV, the superstars of. I went and asked for JJ, and I told him where I'd been. Well, see, that was JJ's first territory, had actually been Grand Prix. So he knew all the names I had been working for, all the older guys, the Duprees and the Mills and the Cormiers, you know, all these. And I was like, so he knew it wasn't full of shit. And plus he knew Malenko, you know. So I said, I've been trained there, blah, blah. Come in, so I had a couple matches with them, got done. And they said, you know, where you at? And I told them I was in this, you know, greater tri-state area. And they said, we're going to be over in Indiana and Ohio, about 4 or 5 hours from here next month. You want to come? I was like, yeah, love to. So went, done that. Then like I said, I planned on going to Florida after Christmas. And so I got to Tampa right during the New Year. And they had a couple bookings in Orlando and Fort Myers. I took those bookings, because that gave me like 6 or 8 TV tapings, and it paid quite well, and you got the exposure. But then an opportunity to go to South Africa came up. I was actually had about this whole story, I went down to the Home Shopping Network and applied for a job. I had like $8 and lived with my brother. And I was like, I got to get a job. I knew it paid like $8 or $10 at the time. But anyway, as soon as I got home, the phone rang, and it was Ron Starr, who I'd been with up in Canada. And I thought he was ribbing me. He said, you want to go to South Africa? And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, the plane leaves tomorrow. And he told me to fill me all the details. He said, I'll call you back in 5 hours. Well, I called a couple of the guys I was going to ride up with, because I had 2 more WWF tapings to do up in the Panhandle of Florida. And I said, they said, man, you got to do it. So I called the office, and I said, I don't know what, if you had me listed or not to come, but I won't be at these next couple of shows. Can you please keep my name active for future shows? And the lady was real kind about it. I said, yeah, I didn't tell her what was going on. So next day I was on a plane to South Africa for 21 days. So that's the last time I'd really done any TV enhancement for them, or jobs or what have you. But really, it's just one of those things where being in the right place, right time, and being able to perform. That first match was against Roddy Piper. So
I've got the entire list. I've got the entire list of people. I'm actually going to quote you here. Yeah. John Nord, the Berserker, Roddy Piper, Tito Santana, Kerry Von Erich, Mike Rotundo, and Virgil.
Yeah.
Any of those that you remember that stick out in your mind for one reason or another?
Yeah, well, all of them do. Piper, because it was first, and he was doing the chair with Flair, and he wanted me to spit on him. And I was like, this is Roddy Piper. And he goes, no, kid, I'm telling you, spit at me from the ring. And so that was pretty good. Berserker was that same night. And it was just kind of, it was just whatever. But the one that got Virgil, and I know Mike Jones, he didn't have a fucking clue. I'm going to have to lead him around, basically. And it's not a dig towards Mike or anything. It's just that, he was just, he was just there trying to learn to work on the fly, per se. But the one that got me, man, I won't say I still have nightmares about it, but the one I try to forget about is Mike Rotundo, IRS. We were in Daytona Beach. That's where it was. I said Orlando. It was actually, I think, Daytona Beach. And I went up, introduced myself, and told him, whatever he wanted to do, that, I'd been trained and worked some. And man, from the time the bell rang, I don't know if the bell rang, he beat the living piss out of me. It was so bad. And he didn't hurt me. I'm just saying, he just ate me up, man. Everything I did, he was eating me up. And it was so bad. I think of the 3 or 4 minutes that was supposed to air, I think they added it down to like 2 minutes, because he didn't give me jack shit. And it was a good experience. But what was funny was I had done that on like a Saturday or Sunday or whatever day the show was. Well, the following week airs on Superstars, and we had just got done training at Malencos, and my buddy and I and one of the girl wrestlers were going back to her place to eat. And I was flipping through the channels, and I still didn't know like I said, I'd been back to Florida for a couple weeks then. I didn't know the channel, flicking through what, which channel was which. They're over there cooking ramen noodles or something, we're living high as wrestlers, and the Superstars came on, and I said, oh shit, I think this is my match. And Rico and a girl, Jill, they come over, and it was over before it was over. I was like, oh my God, man. I said, God, he beat the piss out of me, man. It was a good experience, though. It really was. And the guys that were really good to me. Tito was easy, professional. I really respected that. Kerry was just like, well, here's what, and I was like, what? And he goes, discus punch. I was like, okay. So I went in there, and it was just really, really quick. And I was just like working around him. He stood there, and I worked around him. That all of a sudden, he drove back, and I knew to expect to punch, and boom, didn't even feel it, went down 1, 2, 3. Oh, thank you. You know, it's like in and out before you knew it, you know. But I got to share the ring with the modern day warrior, you know. But yeah, just one of those things, you know. Plus, they, like I said, the pay was pretty good and the experience was good because you get exposure.
Actually, I was going to ask this. Just before, the question I was going to ask you was Virgil as useless in the ring as he looked on television? That was legitimately my next question. So apparently, yes.
That. Yeah. You want to do this? He called these flippers. He wanted to do a form. I'll give you a couple flippers. And he's getting all excited and stuff. And I can't remember, someone, Tony Gurrier or someone said, "Hey, watch yourself in there." Just, you know, I mean, it's just like a kind gesture, like, you know, he didn't. But I've since, like I said, come to know him through the years, and he's a good guy, but it's like no clue in a ring. You know?
Bless him.
So
bless him. I'll tell you what then. Don Morocco, I recently spoke to, and I say recently spoke to. I've got a podcast with him. I speak to him every week.
Yes, I love that podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much. And he told me recently that both he and Roddy Piper used to give their TV, because they got like something like $75 like per TV appearance, and they used to give that to the enhancement talent they were working with. Was that the same for you with Roddy Piper?
No, not that night. I will say this: the event when I was up at EA Sports shooting a video couple years later for WCW on a video game I was on. He was up there shooting a movie. I think he was on an episode of Viper or something. It's up in Vancouver. He came over to our breakfast table, and myself, Bobby Eaton, a couple other guys there, and he said, "Hey, we'll meet at the bar tonight, have a drink." Well, we got done by like 5:30 or 6, and we'd always go eat about 8 or so. And that evening we got to the bar in a hotel bar, you know, eating restaurant, have a few beers, what have you, and had a note that said Roddy Piper said Mr. Piper said he wouldn't be back from set on time, but the tab's on him tonight, you know. So I thought that was pretty cool, you know, because he was in WWF or what. I don't even think he was just acting. He was doing his acting gig. And here he didn't forget the boys is my point, you know. But yeah. And also, I don't know, I got a really funny Don Morocco story. He may or may not remember.
Please.
So, okay. So
is this Australia based by any chance?
Yeah, Australia based.
Super.
Yes.
Super.
So about 1984, again, one of the arenas I went to, it was myself and my uncle and my brother, and we went around a corner. It was right before intermission, and where the beer was sold at was at the far end, and there was no one on either side. And there's Don Morocco. He used to have these big beers called double dribbles, and it was basically a 24-ounce beer. And so there was a table there, barricade, where you couldn't go beyond that table, but you could order from either side. And Don is picking up these 4 beers, you know, like this. And I'm wanting to get in the business. I'd been, you know, trying for 2 years now. Like, what do I do? What I got? You know, but I wasn't serious. I was still in college age, you know. So I go, Mr. Morocco, how do you get the rest of this business? He sets the 4 beers down, just gulps the one, like 24 ounces, picks up the remaining 3, turns around, looks at it, and goes, and just let out the biggest belch ever. And he goes, hell, I don't know. See the promoter. so fast forward to 93 in Australia. I said, man, I've got to tell Morocco that story. I'd already seen him on the plane as I was boarding in Hawaii. And so, yeah, we made contact there and then at the airport and at the gym, you know. So a few days had passed. I just didn't spring it on him. And so we waited till he was on a tour bus, which we were on a smaller one, not the bigger one. And there was a row of seats between us. So you had the driver and Morocco was up front, bench between us and then our row. And so I relayed that message to that story to Morocco. And he started giggling like he does, you know, laid back. And he turned back to look at me. He goes, well, you know what that means, don't it, Bobby? And I was like, oh, man, here it comes. We'll have to have a beer together. And I was like, oh, all right, man. You know, it's just something funny. But yeah. So yeah, we was on that tour together for 21, 22 days, whatever it was, back in the restaurant in 93. But yeah, great guy. It was just funny. They said, we'll have to have a beer together. And we did, and more than one.
He's just with Don, he's what you see is what you get. What a cool dude.
Yeah.
And like we end up talking more off the thingy, just about just whatever we're talking about. Just what a nice guy.
Cool.
I'm happy that you brought up the Australia tour, because that was the next question I was going to ask you. So, but it wasn't
Okay.
about Don. It was actually
Yeah.
about the unholy trio of Jim Neidhart, Jake the Snake Roberts, and Junkyard Dog. You must have a story of them three just ruining everywhere
Oh
within like 10
man.
feet of their sphere of influence.
Oh man. Yeah, dog was. I mean, all three of them was over. They were staying back and taking a lot of Polaroid pictures and things. One night in particular, we got just kind of tie this one together. We got finished. I had to stay back myself and the two Australian guys to ride that bus with the guys that were taking the pictures. And that just happened to be who it was. And they had a big old barrel full of beer, on the bus and stuff. And Neidhart is, he gets up and he gets behind a driver and he's standing there and he's doing his beard gimmick, and he's grabbing the pole. And someone said, "I got to piss, let's pull over." Well, he went up and stood at the front of the thing and said, "No one, don't stop." And the driver's name was Jeff. And he was like, "Don't stop, Jeffrey." And he's like, "No one's getting off this bus to piss." It's like a 2-hour ride. And he's holding the pole and he's going, "You know how many wrestlers have been killed on the side of the road pissing?" Well, everyone just kind of started laughing like, "I never heard of it." But, he's all dead serious. And he's like, "We're not going to stop. We don't want anyone down on this." So he's doing that. Jake and Morocco and JYD's in the back, just hammering the beers, having a good time, what have you. Out of nowhere, so Jake is up there, and I'm having a few beers with him and one of the Australian boys, and the other Australian boy, he's kind of off to himself. But Jake just says, like, out of nowhere, now this is making sense, but he goes, "You know who they ought to kill? They ought to kill father fuckers." And I was like, what? Where'd that come from? And that's all he said. I don't know I'm thinking maybe it has something to do with the things that are coming out now, but he was somewhere in a buzz that he wasn't there, that he was just like, something like that. And I was like, we just let it go, because he was like, he wasn't talking to me directly or the Australian boy directly or anyone. So it's kind of a clusterfuck of a bus ride, if you will, just having a few beers, and heading back to the hotel. And hold on, Alexa, stop. I don't know what we said, but I got her going. That's the background noise. Anyway, yeah. No, those guys were over there. Jake's the snake he was using got loose at one of the arenas. We got there early, and they had hired. They used a couple of different snakes, and we got to one of the buildings, and we're doing the meet and greet and this and that, and go back to the locker room, and Jake, like, sit the bag down. Next thing you know, about 20-30 minutes passes by, and like, the snake's not in the bag, and the girl's freaking out. There's a guy and two girls that are like the animal handlers. They're like freaking out, like, what happened? He goes, "I just set it down over there. I had it tied, whatever, So after about 2 or 3 matches, Kishi Yamada, you may know as Jushin Thunder Liger, is in a shower, and all you hear in perfectly good English is, "Oh shit, snake!" And he comes running out. It apparently went down into a drain through the toilet or whatever. Of course, it was extremely hot, and it just came back up through where his shower was at. So that's pretty funny. And so Jake got to be a little more careful with the snake. So just little things like that make the tour even more fun, So
Don told me a story about that tour, and he said the Unholy Trinity were in a pizza place that also was serving beer and drinks and everything. He walked in, grabbed a couple of slices of pizza, and was walking out, and he sees JYD, Jake, and Jim. And one of them says, "Hey, Don, join the party." And they give him a triple vodka straight in a glass. And Don just goes, "Thank you," drinks it, and just walks straight out. It's like, I wanted nothing to do with that.
Yeah. No, they were starting from day one. It was 21 days of nonstop, really. Like I said, they were giving us pretty much free beer in the big tubs every evening, the Victoria Bitters, and then also Foster's. Just, you had your choice, and you could take as many as you wanted. And some of the guys, once you get back on that bus, we flew just about everywhere, but there were also some times where you just took like a little 2-hour bus ride. They would just load their bags down and pound them, man, and I'm just as guilty. I had a good time while I was there. I'm not going to lie about it, but no use to, and I'm not talking trash about anyone or talking out of school on it. It was just a hell of a good tour. And we had Guns N' Roses had just finished up a tour when we got there, like the week before, for our tour. And hell, they gave every one of us a bottle of Jack Black that they had left over. If you wanted a bottle of Jack Daniels, they were giving it to you because it was left over from the last tour. And I took one of those right away. Like, okay, this will get me by for a few weeks, just having a good time, But that of course that'll get you out of hand and get you in trouble. But have a couple shots of Jack every night was, if you wanted it, because they gave it to you. But we only had one night got confused with the ring. We was in Canberra. And I would imagine that might have been the night that the Holy Trinity, as you said, they were probably out up to no good all night long, I would imagine. Because we got there and it's real nice casino with the hotel. And we had a night off, unexpectedly. And we got to stay another night there because we were supposed to have the next night off. So it worked out really good. But I would imagine that's where I know some other things that happened that I won't say because it involved a couple of my friends and it just
we
shaved heads and stuff like that. Not good. Not good.
We don't know what the statute of limitations, if there is one in Australia, so we'll leave that there then, and we'll go straight to Smoky Mountain Wrestling. So Tommy Rogers of the Fantastics gives your name out to Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette brings you in. Aside from Jim Cornette, which I'll always talk about because everyone knows that is my favourite subject to talk about, is Jimmy. Were you a patron of the Smoky Mountain Flophouse?
I stayed about 3 nights, just and not in sequence. No, the way it worked, I usually stayed out to one of the hotels. Many nights I could travel back home, but no, a couple nights if I was going to be there for 2 or 3 days, and maybe the first day to loop, like if we done a Thursday show, I may just cop. I was, believe it or not, I was there. More so as a guest of this when Bruiser Bedlam was there. So I just him and I just kind of clicked, and Jericho was in his room and Casey was in another, and so I just dropped by a couple of times and stayed just enough time to probably lay down about 1 o'clock in the morning, get back up about 7, 8 and get out there. I wasn't a regular member there by any means. I was on my own pretty much, or I stayed out to the hotel with Ricky or Robert. Robert, a lot of times Ricky and Robert didn't room together, so I'd stay with Robert, and then sometimes Tracy and Steve, they didn't always room together, so I stay with Tracy or Steve, But yeah, no, I wasn't out to the Flophouse too much.
Are the stories grossly exaggerated, or is it all the cockroaches and Harvey Whippleman scuttling around together? Is it all what it's made out to be, basically?
Yeah, nah, I wasn't there long enough to hang out, man. I cop a few Z's, and get up and head out the next day. So.
Well, I'll tell you what. In the intro, I brought up "You're a Man That Will Never Back Down," and that's alluding to your theme music, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And weirdly, right. So when I started researching to do this interview, a lot of my research consists of listening to "Dirty White Boy," just because it's just a great tune. But so were you the person who picked that song, and why wasn't it "Blaze of Glory" by John Bon Jovi?
Well. The reason I picked that song, Jimmy and I had been off for a while. His little saying, "How can I miss you if you don't go away?" Well, I had went away. I was working some independent scenes up in, Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, etc., and been away and got a phone call on a Friday. Ironically, I wasn't even going to stop at my house, but I had been doing some radio promos in West Virginia, stopped by the house, and he called, and I was heading to Tennessee, but not for Smoky Mountain, for an independent thing or shit show or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, because we were getting good exposure off the TV, and Jimmy ran an idea by me. And said, with me and Lawler doing the deal. And I was like, ooh, I like it. He goes, I have to confirm it. I'll call you back Monday evening. And I said, great. And of course, that call came. Well, the whole deal was, I had been kind of the upset kid, or and I came out to some Metallica music, and the No Quit kid, and, all this. And then Corny had, come up with this idea. And I never forget, I was standing in the, out back at Knoxville Civic Coliseum, and Mark Curtis came up to me. He goes, "Bobby, you got any music you want to do?" Well, the whole way down there, I'd just been listening to Tom Petty and Heartbreakers, and man, I was just like, I won't back down. I won't back down. I said, I know where this is going to go. I said, yeah, I do. Give me a few minutes. So I ran all the way back out to my car, and I gave it to Mark, and I just kind of, Blazing Glory was, that would have been great. I've done it on independent shows. I've done it in Japan, those type things. But that song there, and he says, when you can stand me at the gates of hell. And that's when I'd come through the curtains, because I knew what Jimmy wanted me to do, it's like kind of upset these guys, and set the tone. So they may beat my ass, but I'm not going to quit, and I'm not going to back down. And so, I just ran up to the car, got it, had the track already lined up, gave it to Mark Curtis and said, you can, run it by Jimmy or play or whatever. And he just took it. I don't know if he said, if he took it to Jimmy or he took it right to sound. And that's what it became, man, So that's how it happened. But he didn't ever question me about it. Nothing like that. Why did I pick it or anything? It just, sometimes great minds, you know what I'm saying? And him and Mark Curtis, myself, it just gelled on that level. So, yeah.
Best entrance music then, not just your own, but because I miss the old days of wrestling where it's the Wild West. No one was searching for royalties, and you could just pick what you wanted. So who had the best theme music for Your Money and Smoky?
Well, Smoky. I just saw Ricky on your interview here, and I think when you do the Bob Seger, take the old records off the shelf, that old time rock and roll, when they was going with that, as soon as that hit, but I'll tell you this, in my mind, I could hear a song like that Dirty White Boy. If I'm driving down the street, I say, oh, fuck, here comes Tony Anthony. I just pop to myself. And if I hear a Bob Seger, old time rock and roll, I'll be like, boom, here come Ricky and Robert. I just know. I liked Tom used to come out to Back in the Saddle from Aerosmith. He came out that a few times. Overall, I'd say probably the biggest pop was rock and roll with, just take those old records off the boom. Yeah. They're coming, man. They're coming through that curtain. That's probably the biggest pop there. Overall, you go back to the Freebird or something like that when that song come on, Mid-South or something. But no, for Smoky, I loved hearing like I said, Dirty White Boy. I'd be like, oh, here comes Dirty White Boy. Oh, here comes Ricky and Robert. I knew when the gates of hell, I'm through the curtain. So I liked it when it's more outlaw like that too. Like like you said, an old Western, maybe no one's looking to cop all the royalties and you can't do this and that. Just they played songs and it went on. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good question. Thank you.
I was going to say ECW is probably the last of that breed, really, but it's a shame, anyways. It's a shame that one, it's so expensive to copyright music. It's so expensive to get the royalties to use it because you've got to use it on, let's say, the network. Formerly DVDs, but you've got to be able to use it in games as well. It run the cost up too much, and it's just such a shame. I'll move on, and I'll go straight to Jim Cornette. First meeting with Jim Cornette, and the question I love to ask the most: the first time you saw him blow a gasket at something very minor.
So I was in Florida, as you said. Tommy Rogers told me, "Hey, Jimmy's opening this promotion. Me and Bobby's been working for him some up in your area." And I was like, oh, great. And I ran into him at the gym. He'd come over to Malencos a couple of times, get some ring time before we went to Japan. And then he also worked at the same gym my brother and I did. And so he said, he said, would you be interested? And I said, hell yeah, because I'd already been talking to Robert Fuller about going to Memphis maybe, because he worked out the same gym as well. So they knew I was trying to work my way back up to my home area. Cause I grew up on this wrestling in this area, the old Memphis style, the old Southeastern wrestling and stuff. So anyway, when Tommy told me that, I said, yeah, I'd love to. He goes, what are you doing tonight about 9? And I said, I'll be home. Like I said, I live with my brother, we trained together, and it was really working out nice. And so Cornette didn't call. Actually he did. I'm sorry. I called Jimmy. Let me reword. I called Jimmy that night about 9, and he goes, Bobby, I'm really busy. I'll get right back to you. I know who you are. I'll get right back to you. Something to that effect, but I didn't hear back from him. So next day at the gym, Tommy asked me, did Jimmy call you? And I said, yeah, but it's really brief. And I said, he said, call back. But he goes, he'll call you tonight. So that night at 9 o'clock, Jim Cornette calls me. Hey, Bobby, I'm aware of your name. Tommy spoke real highly of you. He says you work with Dean. You work like Bobby, or a lot with Bobby. You kind of look like Bobby. Send me some stuff. So I sent him a VHS tape and some pictures I had. Now this was in, and he said, I'm not full time right now, but I'm getting ready to go full time. So it's like February when the very first TVs are coming out, about 92. And I'm like, okay. So didn't really hear back from him. I came home in early June after mailing that package to him. And there was a Smoky Mountain show about an hour from my house at a town I'm very familiar with, very popular wrestling town. And I said, well, I'm not doing anything. I'm getting ready to go back to Canada. That's why I came from Florida back here, just kind of hung over to see my parents and family. So I drove up to that show and I got there early. Here comes Cornette and he comes in. And that's our first in-person meeting. And shook my hand. He goes, Bobby Blaze. We started talking and I had some new promos and another video. And we sit there and talked for probably 20 minutes. And he said, are you going to stick around to the show? I said, I'd like to. He goes, yeah, I do. He goes, when you watch the show, see where you think you might fit in here at. And I said, oh, okay, great. So I had already known a couple of the guys that's on the show. So I went to the babyface side and I knew Robert Gibson a little bit, Brian Lee just a little bit, and Scott Armstrong was there, but I didn't know him at all at that point. I knew who he was, of course. And Brian was like, hey, you think about coming in? I'm like, I hope so. Let's see what happens. I've got another tour lined up, blah, blah, blah. So after that tour, I called him again, and I had just a couple weeks off, and off to Australia I went. And when I got right back from Australia, Bobby Fulton called me, put me on a show. The next week, Cornette called me and said, hey, Bobby Fulton really put you over too. So now I got Tommy and Bobby and, this and that. And Corny calls me and says, hey, you want to have a tryout match? And I was like, yeah. So it took 9 months, from the first contact of that. And then I went to Beckley, West Virginia. And that's where I had my tryout match against Brian Lee. Jimmy took us into the bathroom. I'm like 6'1", 220 at the time, something like that. Here's Brian Lee, like 6'8", 280 stacked. And Jimmy, we'd already talked, Brian and I had, like even before. And Jimmy said, hey, Bob, you have any problem putting Brian over, do you? And I'm like, he goes, he's our first TV champion. It's not, that's what I did. I looked up, I go, dude, what's your finish? I said, it's no problem, whatever you want. And Brian goes, well, I do this thing, shoulder breaker. And he goes, real easy. And Jimmy goes, Bobby, just go out there and give me 10 minutes. And I go, Brian, you want anything special? He said, you're the heel, call the match. So I got there and worked the match. Cornette come up to me afterwards and said, hey, let me keep my eye out for you. And about a week and a half, 2 weeks later at the Bluegrass Brawl, Robert Gibson blew his ankle out. And he was coming up from Pensacola at the time. And Corny called me and he said, Bobby, I got a 3 or 4 day loop. Can't remember. It's right up in Kentucky, all within a couple hour distance of my home. And he said, would you like to fill in on a card? So I said, I'd love to. So every night I worked with Tom Pritchard for the first 3 nights. And then they moved, Tim Horner moved up on the card and made a tag team with Ricky, I guess is what it was. And then Tom worked twice. And I'm like, man, that's good experience because I'm in the very first match with Tom Pritchard. And then Jim Cornette is right there managing. So he can see my stuff, you know what I'm saying? And then, and Tom would do, power bomb, boom, 1, 2, 3. But it was a good even match, 15-minute match opener, And like the 4th night, Mark Curtis came to me and he said, Bobby, what's your finish? And I go, what? I'm going to put Tom over. And he goes, no, we got a guy we brought in and he's going to put you over tonight. And I go, okay. And I go, who is he? He goes, a guy named Mike Sampson. And he's on a lot of Smoky Mountain tapings. And I knew Mike from the Independents. And I said, oh, man, I know Mike. And I said, just tell him to watch the drop kick off the top rope. Because I've been really tweaking at the Northern Light suplex, but I wasn't real confident in it at that particular point. Because I was just training with Dean on that right prior to leaving Tampa. Anyway, went out there and got a win and, that put me over. Someone here likes me, Then I won the Battle Royal later on that night. And from there, I went and done one more house show with Taz was leaving. And Jimmy called me and said, Bobby, I don't have you on a booking sheet, but this is in West Virginia. How close are you to this town in West Virginia? And I was like an hour and a half away. I told him, he said, well, can you be there? I was like, yes, sir. You know, so I drove up there, and it was Taz's last day, and his last day of their loop. And I got to work with Taz before he went, you know, his Tasmaniac or whatever, before he busted out up in ECW. And that night, Jimmy came to me and said, you know, hey, would you like to come in? So, yeah, yes, sir, I would. And he goes, I was wearing old black trunks with black boots with red laces, red trim, BB, or, you know, that's just kind of in honor of Malenko. And he said, and I did have gear, though, that had flames all over it, but I just, you know, wasn't ready for that. He goes, you got some gear, if anything, it's more flashy? I said, yes, sir, I do. And I pulled it out and showed him. He goes, start wearing that. And from there, it was just a good relationship professionally and personally. You know, we kind of hit it off pretty good. As far as him going off, blowing a gasket, I've seen him do that a couple of times, but I'll just put myself in that situation. We probably only had one time that we butted heads, and it was completely my fault. But I was going to, I've heard him call someone else an idiot that didn't work at that company much longer after that day. You can probably put two and two together who that is. But I've seen him go off on people, you know. But in my situation, I think we only had one conflict, and I can understand why. So I was going to wrestle Larry Santos, who was a very good enhancement talent, and it was for TV. And then I didn't know this at the time, but the next match was going to be Killer Kyle, but he was going to be wrestling Mike Furnace, and Furnace was just breaking in, so he knew a football tackle, you know what I'm saying? And Mike was a hell of a good guy, but I for whatever reason, I'm at the top of the stairs with Bullet Bomb Armstrong and Larry Santo. So Bullet's going to go out because he's going to the announcer table. He's the commissioner. So we're all going to go out and go to our spots. And I had this little spot worked out with Larry. I said, Larry, just begin. I'm going to wrestle. I'm going to eat you up a little bit. And I said, didn't cut me off. And Larry could do it. Okay. Then I turned around for some reason. I said, Larry, as soon as I take my jacket off, just attack me. He goes, okay. Well, I get announced. I take my jacket off. He comes over and gloms me, whatever. Well, then I get on him, eat him up. Northern Lights, 1, 2, 3. I come through the back, and there's Cornette. God damn it, Bobby Blaze. What the fuck are you thinking? He goes, you know fucking, you've been trained by Malencos. You know a million fucking holds and moves. And he's just chewing my ass on the stairwell, right? And he goes, and you got Larry Santo to work with, and you know he can work. He goes, God damn it, I got to change the next card. He said, because I got Killer Kyle going out there against Mike Furnace, and Mike Furnace don't know jack shit. And he was supposed to attack Kyle, or Kyle was going to attack them. Kyle was going to attack him and just beat him up until the finish. And you done the same damn thing. And I was just like, oh, I did fuck up. So they had to slide in another match because they didn't want to see two matches in a row where basically someone gets attacked, and then because I had Larry just attack me, then I just started eating them up and went home. So he had to throw a match in on that, so that threw his schedule off in his mind. Then he had to go back and tell Kyle, try to give him something more than what fucking Bobby Blaze gave Larry Santo. But the thing was, as soon as the show and a couple more matches, TVs, whatever, pressure's off, whatever. As soon as that was over, you know, it was all good. And I knew I went over and I just put my head down and I looked at Robert Gibson, and I knew he and I had to do another thing on that same taping. And I was like, I just lost my job, didn't I? He goes, no, man. He goes, as soon as this taping's over, he's already forgot about it. Fuck it. Don't worry about it. You sure? He said, Bobby, I've known Jimmy a long time. It's good. And I was like, okay. And then by the time next taping rolled around, it's forgotten, you know. So, yeah, he can go, man. He can go off. And I like that about him.
Was Mike Furnace, right, so he was the brother of Doug Furnace, wasn't he? Was he the guy who could only do the tackle, and then he did a tackle so hard he ended up tackling himself out the ring?
Yeah. Hell of a nice guy, but just wrestling-wise, you'd never know. He's, you know, Doug's brother. Just he come in, UT football player, worked hard. He was doing some dock work, and he was hitting the gym, and he was finishing, I think he's finished his graduate work actually. And he just really didn't catch on to the whole, you know, wrestling business part of it, you know. But yeah, good guy, good body, just nothing like his brother though.
You weren't on the Dairy Queen incident bus, were you? Okay,
I've been to that Dairy Queen, but no, I had no problems there.
I'll leave that one then. I'll ask you this, right? So, in later days, Tim Horner and Jim Cornette have a bit of a whatever they have a bit of an argument, they fall out or whatever.
Yeah,
But
I was there for that night. They were just at I don't know if it's exact night, but I've been there a couple nights where, like I said, someone's called an idiot. Don't call me a fucking idiot. And it's like, it's across the room. Well, fuck you, fucking it. Yeah.
Weirdly, where I was going with this wasn't actually Tim Horner. Tim Horner once said that when Jim Cornette brought the gangsters in, it cost the company $100,000. Do you agree with that in any way? Because I realise that New Jack's talking got the company into the wrong type of heat, I believe the term is.
I don't know what it cost them. That wasn't my concern. The only time I talked to money wise, I just knew that I think TV taping were like costing $17,000 a month to keep afloat with all the building rent, the travel. That was about what it was taking, I think, for the TVs. And Horner had said a couple things to me. And Tim was always good to me, but Tim made it appear like he was a bigger part of the office. They put that junior heavyweight title on me at the beginning. He goes, I told you someone here likes you. We all like you, and then, little things like that. But as far as Jim asked me to sit on production meetings, which I thought were great. So I could, eventually I, saw the sheets and knew what order the matches were and maybe not to go out there and let someone attack you when I should have been wrestling, but, no, I never, I think there was less tension after Tim left for whatever reason. Because I think some of the guys were feeling like he was trying to rule the babyface locker room. I didn't know any better, so I didn't give a fuck one way or the other. I knew what I was there for, and I didn't disrespect them, not like that. I just hear things, and I see things, and I'm like, I can see the underlying the tone here. It's not good because there's some heat. And, but yeah, I didn't get involved in all that bullshit politics. I figured this, if Sandy Scott told me I had a good match, Mark Curtis told me I had a good match, and Jim Cornette was paying me and told me I had a good match, I didn't worry about what the fuck anyone else said, except for my opponent to make sure I had a good match with that person. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I brought up the gangsters before. New Jack passed away a couple of weeks ago. Have you got any specific New Jack memories?
Yeah, yes, I do. First of all, I never had any problem with New Jack. And I had this, I'd seen this on an interview of him. He'd do this. He came, we were going to show in Knoxville on like a Friday. Then we were running my hometown the very next day. And they wrestled here. It was D-Lo, so it was all three of them, the gangsters. We was going to do a 6-man tag. And I was with the Heavenly Bodies. And they put me over my hometown. Then like the next month or 6 weeks when we ran again, and I used to draw these pretty good houses for this small town. And it was me and Rock and Roll Express against the gangsters, so I had no problem that way whatsoever. But the first time we were in Knoxville and New Jack says, Bobby, can I get a minute of your time? I said, yeah, sure. And we were downstairs, and matches were over. And he goes, can I borrow $30 to make it to the next town? And I was like, well, I had money on me. Plus, I knew the next town was my home. I was coming home from Knoxville that night to help with the show the next day. So I thought, well, $30, if I don't get it back, I'm not going to be broke. And I have it, So I didn't know what he needed it for or if he didn't need it. So I gave him the $30, right? Well, I later heard that he would test people. He would test people, not even need the money. He would just say, hey, will you loan me some money to see if they would or not? And then he'd always give it back like the next day just to kind of test them. So I guess I passed his little test because, I gave him the $30, but I knew I was okay. I was coming home and I had cash on me and was running that show. My show usually did pretty good. I'd make more than $30, And anyway, as soon as he come to town, man, he's like, Bobby, can you and I speak for a minute? And I was like, yeah. Well, I knew what it was. We walked back out of the locker room. He said, here's $30. He goes, man, I thank you. Appreciate that very much. I said, you're welcome, man. And that was it. And then we went out and worked and, they got me over. of course, it's not hard to get over when you got fucking Tom and Jimmy Del Rey the first time, and then D'Lo takes the pin, and then the next time we come, like I say, you got Ricky and Robert, and I had them here for my very first show, so this is probably like a year later. How hard it is to get them over? They're going to get over, and I'm with them, in my hometown. So gangsters come in. We done just a different thing, and either D'Lo or Mustafa or one of them took the deal, but no, I never really had any heat with Jack at all. I'd heard things and saw little things, but again, wasn't my business. And I told my brother when I heard that, when I saw a shoot interview and he was talking about how he tested people by asking that money thing. And I thought, man, that's weird. But hey, I remember him asking me for that, and he gave it back the very next day, and that was that. So
must be some weird prison test that he caught. Like,
that's what I'm thinking, man.
Yeah. You actually mentioned something about it's money again, and did you have to, as I imagine most people had to, you do your match and then you go straight to the gimmick table to sell stuff? Was that you as well?
Oh yeah. Trace folks. So when I got there, Tracy Smothers. We were like, not the small towns I had been to, like I was talking about. So very first time I did a bigger loop, Tracy Smothers said before the show, he goes, come on, let's go to the gimmick tables. And I was like, because I had, like up in Canada when I worked there, they had a gimmick table, but they just sold your picture and kept it, as part of the house, So I had some photos, and I remember I had 7 little black and white photos that I brought with me from Florida that was still kind of floating around that I'd given promoters. And I was like, he goes, you got something to sell, don't you? He goes, just come and check it out. So I went up there, and there's Ricky and Robert and Tracy and myself. And I had made a couple of TVs at this time, and, been in, it was in Johnson City, Tennessee. And I put them 7 pictures out there, and they sold in black and white. They sold for $2 each. And I thought, man, I just made $14. I stoked for that. I said, that's my gas money or a hamburger or something on the way home, And Tracy says, when you get home, get you some more picture made. Well, as soon as I did that week, I set up and had me a photo session set up and stuff. And then when they say, let the gimmick wars begin, I'd be like, yeah, I'm right there with them. So I'd have Rock and Roll Express, just killing it. And Ricky would say, stand by us, Bobby, and get our leftovers. And I'd do it, and then sometimes Tracy say, hey, you want to work a table together? I like, so they smartened me up to it. And then of course you have, I went from first match. So I getting known to third match in those Smoky Mountain shows. Usually after third match, well, that was intermission. So people run to either get a beer or go get gimmicks. So I was like, I get that big win right before intermission. People, that's the last thing they saw coming back before you had your semi-main event. So my gimmicks, I was like, I wasn't getting rich, but I was like, yeah, and I remember Bullet Bob saying, that's a good spot, Bobby, right there at third match, man. He goes, because you'll sell your gimmicks. And I did. But I learned from the best, man, Ricky and Robert and Tracy. Couple of times, a couple other people come out there, but shit, that was a good deal, the gimmicks.
Yeah, were Ricky and Robert just the absolute kings of just writing their name on any old crap and selling it for $20?
Oh, man, yeah, absolutely, man. At one of them blue brass bras I was mentioning, like I said, Robert got hurt that first one. Well, by the third one, I think I wrestled Buddy Landell on that one. I can't remember if the Undertaker was on that one or not. I think he was. Huge house, turning away people and stuff. But Ricky and Robert had brought these big inflatable guitars, like they get at a fair. Oh my God, everyone in that place had a fucking signed autograph, one of those air guitars, man, they had bandanas, just open up a pack of bandanas, regular bandanas that got at Walmart, to sign them, it's like they were the kings, man, no doubt. And I love both of those guys, man. And I will say this too, I was telling Johnny Candido, I really miss Tracy a lot. We spoke about his brother, of course, in the book, but I really miss Tracy a lot because he helped me. Him and Ricky and Robert helped me a whole lot in Smoky Mountain, and we had a pretty good little bond there. And so yeah, it's good times, man. But he smarted me up to the gimmicks. I had $14, man. Those 7 pictures, and I was like, dang, it went off. Go home and get photos made. So
I don't know if you're married at the moment or anything like that. So this could be a very quick question if you want. But did Jim Cornette, like other people, encourage you to maybe have a bit of a tickle with some of the lady fans to keep them coming back for more?
Well, I was single when I started there. I'd been to a couple, like I said, I've been up in Canada and worked in Florida and kind of knew the deal. Not to the extent that we had going on in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, but I certainly, there was some whistle wetting going on. But during that time, I met a girl, became engaged, and so I, lay low for a while, and then eventually got married, and so I really kind of had to lay low, So towards the end there, now I was a family man. Once that come about, I was like, I'm all about. Now I'm not an angel by any means. I'm just saying at that point, I was like, I was living a straight and narrow, for at least a while. So, but yeah, going in and also knowing what's going on, it's fun.
Good times. Good times.
Yes.
I'll tell you what then, I'm going to launch into what I call the personality test that isn't the personality test, but it's got some sort of, I don't know, you'll know what it is. I mean, I'm going to give you some sentences. You tell me who best fits the bill, and you cannot say yourself. And the first one is funniest person in the locker room.
Brad Armstrong.
And that's last man standing at the bar.
Tommy Rich.
Yeah, I'm sure that's been answered before, Tommy Rich. The wrestler who would be least likely to visit the laundry.
Oh, man. Boo Bradley.
Oh, really? Oh, Boo.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, actually, Balls Mahoney, isn't it, of course?
Yeah, Balls Mahoney, yeah. Balls Mahoney, Boo.
Yeah. Biggest
Stinky motherfucker.
I'll give you biggest stooge for the dirt sheets, if there was any.
Oh, man. Not so much that I recall there in Smoky. I know a couple people probably was, I don't know. I think Corny and a couple, Brian, I think people were getting word out to dirt sheets, but yeah, I don't think there was like the big stooge to them. They just like, here it is. So,
stiffest wrestler, just proper crowbar on every move.
You talking about a Smoky Mountain or
it can be anywhere.
Yeah. Oh man. I said at the beginning, man, Robbie Eagle, Destro, he was very stiff until he learned to work, and he did learn to work. But yeah, he was a crowbar, and I was like, Robbie, you've worked and it's Georgia Third or Maestro. There you go. So you've worked Smoky Mountain, you worked Memphis. It's a fucking work. Lighten the fuck up. So that'd be my personal. But then he did go and he learned to work, and it was like night and day. And I told you, man, it's a fucking work. And he yeah, well, Tommy Rich kind of told me that too. And so had a few other guys. And I'm like, because it took him a while to get a job because he was just stiff as a man. He was a crowbar. Good dude though. I love Robbie. Good friend of mine, but man, he was stiff as fuck. So
man, this is a new question, so I don't know to expect a good answer or not. The strangest thing you've ever stolen from a hotel, motel, Holiday Inn. Say what?
I caught that. Oh man, strangest thing I've stolen?
Yes. I should have said you can't say yourself unless you can say yourself. That was a bit of a bad thing on my part.
No, oh man, I don't know, man. A robe from the Ritz-Carlton in Sydney. I don't know anything about it. I just know apparently they also build you later, so I don't know. Didn't get away with it too much,
So it wasn't stolen, then you paid for it.
It wasn't stolen. I paid for it. Yeah, I think they put interest on it. So I'm not big on
No, fair enough then. That was
I know people has taken tons of towels and just go in and clean out the fucking soap and take everything in a fucking room and what nailed down. I know people like that, but it wasn't anything,
No, you had enough towels.
Yeah.
The biggest ribber or funniest rib.
Oh man, well, everyone knows Owen was, of course, but I wasn't around Owen that much.
I was going to say I've written a book on Owen, so I must know a few of them. 160 I wrote.
Wow, but yeah, Smoky Mountain. We just had a good crew there. I would say the one and there was some ribs. There were some ribs. The Harris boys like throwing fucking firecrackers in empty locker rooms and shit. Shit nowadays would get you in jail probably. But probably being around personally when I was in WCW, Kurt Hennig, man, just Kurt, just king of ribs. And I remember one time I flew into San Bernardino and I'd just been there like a couple weeks, and just so happened I was sitting by him, or he was sitting by me, however way you want to go about it. And they had these big open lockers, and not the swinging open, but just open where you dress into. And I came back from my match and I looked over and his bag had been locked and chained. And I thought, oh, fuck, he's going to think I did that maybe, you know what I'm saying? And he come up and he stood and looked at me, looked at his bag, but I wasn't there to see who done it. But I thought he's going to think me. And he just shook his head. He goes, I didn't see nothing, man, like that. He goes, don't worry about it. He goes, I know who done this. He goes, well, I've had a thing going with this guy for quite a while. And it's something between him and Mongo had been going back and forth. So Mongo had actually done it that night, but Kurt had obviously already done something to him or was fixing to do something to him in revenge. But yeah, Kurt Hennig probably.
Did you ever find out what the revenge was?
No. Just probably, same thing. Put his shit in a locker and locked it up with chains or something. I don't know. I knew it was going on, and I was just glad he knew it wasn't me. But he was always pulling ribs and stuff. Yeah.
I was just going to say the word Smoky Mountain Wrestling. That means nothing. Worst taste in music.
Worst taste in music.
Yeah. You've traveled with a lot of people. There must be someone who's just always got classic FM on or something.
Man, no, you know what? I like all types of music, and I know my preference like classic rock, and most of I don't recall anyone really having some shitty music on, I'm drawing a blank if they did. Even if it's country western or rock or old school 80s, no one comes to mind. We always agreed on playing this disc or this station or what have you. So luckily no big car rides where someone played fucking,
scat jazz.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, that's where I draw the line. Most memorable backstage fight.
Oh, well, just the ones I've heard of. Luckily for that, and I hate to hear that, the ones I've heard about, of course, and that I've actually been a part of or seen. I'm probably getting boring right now. I heard about JYD and Luger in Atlanta. Of course, the Vader one I've heard about, and a few others. But I saw Eddie Guerrero and Booker T get pretty heated, but no physical fight that particular night. Smoky, I know Tracy and Ricky had a little thing there, but again, it was out off away from the building. That's more their girls going back and forth from my understanding of that. And again, that wasn't my business, just hearsay. Nothing comes to mind really, to be honest with you.
No. Okay, then. We'll leave that there then. I'll give you a couple more. Heaviest smoker, regular cigarettes.
Jimmy Del Rey, put him up there. Tommy Rich, up there. They just kill him. Another one was away from the ring, of course, but whenever I saw him, and it surprised me, was Van Hammer.
Really?
He just and he smoked these Virginia Slims. So you got this guy like 6'8" or whatever with the long hair, and he's got this real long ass, 120, lady cigarette, and But yeah, no, I'd say chimney smoker, man. Jimmy Del Rey, and then Tommy Rich probably. Just bam, one in, one out. Lighting another one as soon as the other one's finished.
Roughest town to work.
Roughest town to work. Oh man. Shit. Probably. I don't know, man. I'm drawing a blank on that.
No, okay.
We had little towns here and there. I say it's probably some little. Most of these small towns, they're just happy to get wrestling in. Hardest town to work. I would have to say overall it'd be Philadelphia, for that crew, whether it be NWA or WWF or ECW coming in. From my understanding, and I wasn't there or anything, I'm just saying that would probably be the toughest town, because that's a tough crowd for football and basketball and baseball. I mean, they're notorious for being asshole fucking fans up there. You know what I'm saying? So I'll just throw Philly out there, but that's not firsthand experience.
Yeah.
It's only as a fan that I see it in other sports as well.